I slept with my stepfather, while my mom was in the next row. "You've got soft skin," he said without looking at me. That sentence shouldn't have existed. Not in our house. Not from him. My name is Olivia, and this is the part I never thought I'd say out loud. The first time David touched me, really touched me, it was under the guise of care. I had twisted my ankle coming down the stairs. He was there instantly, like he had been waiting in the shadows, his hands wrapped around my leg, firm but gentle, as if he knew exactly how much pressure would keep me still. He lifted it onto his lap, unrolled my sock with a slowness that made my skin burn, and pressed his thumbs into the sore tissue like he was trying to memorize it. "You've got soft skin," he murmured, eyes on the floor. I froze. I should have pulled away. I should have said something sharp, something to remind him of what we were and what we weren't. But I didn't. I couldn't. He looked at me, then really looked. There was something in his eyes I hadn't seen before. Something hungry, restrained, desperate. And I realized in that terrifying moment I'd seen it in myself too. That night I stayed in my room and replayed everything. His fingers, that look, the way he didn't flinch when I didn't protest. It should have felt wrong, and in so many ways it did. But beneath the shame, beneath the disbelief, was something else. A current. A pull. We never start with the end in mind. No one says I'm going to betray the people I love today. It starts with a whisper, a brush of skin, a glance too long in the wrong direction, and sometimes that's all it takes. I was 22 when it began. My mother had just been promoted, traveling constantly. She left early, came home late, and David stayed. Quiet, watching, waiting. We were never supposed to be close, but the silence between us became something else, and from the first touch onward it was never the same. If you had told me a year ago that I'd feel drawn to David, my stepfather, I would have laughed, maybe even gagged at the suggestion. It wasn't just forbidden, it was repulsive. But the truth is, life doesn't always shatter rules with a bang. Sometimes it wears them down slowly, quietly, until they crumble on their own. When Mom married him, I was 17. He was distant, always composed, always quiet. He never tried to be my dad, never used that title, never even said my name unless he had to. He kept to himself, a man of few words and heavy silences. I barely noticed him back then. He was just there, like furniture, like background noise. But things started to change when I turned 22. Mom's promotion took her away from home more than ever. Long hours, trips, dinners with executives. Sometimes she was gone for days. And David? He stayed behind in a house that grew quieter with every passing week. At first, it was small things, shared dinners when Mom was away. I'd cook, he'd clean. We'd watch TV on opposite ends of the couch. There was never much talking, but the silence felt heavy. Not awkward, not cold, just charged. Then came the comments. "You're really becoming a woman now." I pretended not to hear it. "You remind me of your mother when she was younger." That one lingered longer in the air. "But there's something in you she never had." I should have walked away right then. But I didn't. Instead, I smiled. Weakly. Out of confusion, flattery, denial. I don't know. All I know is it was the moment I allowed silence to speak for me. That night, I came home from the gym, sweaty, tired, still in my sports bra and leggings. I hadn't expected anyone to be there. But as I passed the living room, I felt it, his gaze. He didn't say anything at first, just watched. His eyes traced a slow path from my chest down to my legs. There was nothing fatherly about it. I froze. "You're sweating," he said quietly. "I just got back from a run," I replied, hugging my arms around myself. "Your strength is undeniable," he murmured. I rushed to my room and locked the door, chest heaving, heart pounding. I looked at myself in the mirror and asked the question that haunted me. Was that real? Did that just happen? The answer came the next day. After my shower, wrapped in a towel, I stepped into the hallway. He was already there. We almost collided. His eyes dropped not by accident, not briefly. His gaze trailed down my chest, paused at my thighs, and returned to my face like nothing had happened. Only it had. He didn't look away. And I didn't either. The scariest part, I wasn't afraid. I was awake, alive. A current buzzed under my skin, and then it happened. I fell. Coming down the stairs later that evening, distracted by my phone, I missed a step. My ankle twisted hard. Pain exploded through my leg as I crumpled onto the floor. My phone hit the ground with a loud crack echoing through the house. David was there instantly. He knelt beside me, panic flashing in his eyes. "Are you all right?" "I think I twisted it," I whispered, wincing. "Let me help." His hands were firm but gentle. One anchored my thigh, the other held my ankle. His touch was steady, too steady. Every part of me screamed for space, for distance. But I didn't move. "I have to look at it," he said. "I'm fine," I replied too quickly. "Let me help you," he said again, softer this time. He guided me to the couch, lifted my leg onto his lap, and began unrolling my sock with excruciating slowness. That's when he said it. "You've got soft skin." His voice low, almost reverent, like he was speaking to himself. My breath caught. "You really shouldn't say that I managed." He looked up. His eyes burned with something I didn't have a name for then. "I understand." But the air said otherwise. We sat in silence, rain battering the windows like a second heartbeat. His hand stayed on my leg. The silence stretched on. Everything about the moment was wrong, but no part of me could undo it. That night, I stayed in bed, ankle throbbing, mind racing. Every second of that moment played on a loop, the touch, the gaze, the way I didn't stop him. And 2 days later, he knocked on my door. It was late. I was in bed, my leg elevated, the laptop screen casting a faint glow. When I opened the door, he held a tray, tea, an ice pack, and a bottle of lotion. "You shouldn't be walking on it," he said. He placed the tray beside me, then sat on the edge of the bed, blanket bunching under his weight. The air between us tightened. He reached for my foot. I paused, then let him. The lotion was warm, his hands deliberate. He massaged gently, carefully, like every inch of my skin was made of glass. "You feel incredible beneath my touch," he said. "David," I whispered, but my voice broke around his name. He leaned in. "Just say the word and I'll stop." But I didn't say anything. He kissed my knee. And then the line disappeared. We never spoke about what it meant. We just stopped pretending there was a line left to cross. After that night, the world didn't end. The sky didn't crack open. My mother didn't wake up in the middle of the night and demand the truth. The house stayed silent. The floor creaked in the same places. The rain kept falling. Life somehow carried on. But we didn't. We had passed a point we couldn't return from, and now we existed in a space neither of us understood. That morning, David avoided me. He didn't look up during breakfast, didn't speak. It was like something had broken in him, or maybe something had awakened. I couldn't tell which. Mom was already gone by the time I came downstairs. Another business trip, another weekend of pretending everything was fine. But it wasn't. The tension between David and me was thicker than silence, sharper than guilt. We didn't talk. We barely made eye contact. Later that day, as I walked past him in the hallway, his voice stopped me. We shouldn't talk in the open. It was the only sentence he said all day. A warning, a rule, a boundary. But the irony of that hit hard. Boundaries were long gone. We fell into a pattern. In front of Mom, we were careful, silent actors in a play we both hated. During the day, we stayed apart. No touching, no words. But at night, in those fragile hours when the world slept, everything changed. One night after another long, silence-filled dinner after she'd gone to bed with a yawn and a wave, David entered my room. Barefoot, shirtless, a bottle of wine in one hand, 2 glasses in the other. I sat up straight in bed, heart hammering. "This is insane," I whispered. "I know," he said, "but I can't stay away." Neither could I. We kissed in hushed, desperate motions like something wild trying to stay quiet. There was no talking, only touching. No justification, only surrender. He whispered my name like it was fragile. Holy. I let him hold me in the darkness, and for a little while I believed in the illusion we'd created. But even illusions come with consequences. One night at dinner, I laughed too hard at one of his jokes. It wasn't planned, it just slipped out a moment of genuine joy. But Mom noticed. Her eyes locked on me. Her smile twitched, then flattened. "What's so amusing?" she asked, voice light, but laced with curiosity. Nothing, I said, cheeks burning. Her gaze flicked between us, pausing on David longer than usual. Later that evening, as I helped her fold laundry, she asked the question, "Has David said anything strange to you lately?" I lied, instantly, without flinching. "Absolutely not." She nodded slowly, but I saw it in her face. Something wasn't sitting right. Her instincts were whispering truths she didn't want to hear. We grew more careful, more calculated, but it didn't matter. The guilt began growing in me like rot beneath the skin. And then came the night that shattered everything. Mom left for a weekend retreat company sponsored. David and I were alone, completely. No neighbors to drop in, no calls, no threat of being caught. And we didn't hesitate. We used her room, her bed, her sheets. We sank into each other like two people drowning in something they mistook for love. It was slow at first, tender, but by the time night fell, it was no longer cautious. It was a storm, violent, consuming. Afterward, I lay on her pillow, the scent of her shampoo still clinging to the cotton beneath my cheek. Shame should have swallowed me whole, but all I felt was stillness. "I loathe myself," I whispered. "No, you don't," David said softly, tracing my skin with his fingertips. "You're just scared of how much it consumes you." I didn't answer, because he was right. That night marked the beginning of the unraveling. On Monday evening, I stood barefoot in the kitchen wearing one of David's shirts, too long to be inappropriate, too short to be innocent. I hadn't heard Mom come in. The door opened quietly, no keys jangling, no usual footsteps, just presence. Her eyes locked on me. "Is that really his shirt?" she asked, tone casual. Too casual. I froze, my back turned. "Laundry day," I mumbled. She said nothing for a long time, but I could feel her gaze slicing through me like glass. Then came the question. "Did you share a bed with him?" Silence. Crushing. Infinite. I turned to face her, slowly, throat tight. "What is happening?" She stepped closer. "If you've been in my husband's bed." The world fell apart. "Yes," I whispered. It wasn't defiance. It wasn't confession. It was collapse. Her reaction wasn't fury. Not at first. She didn't yell, didn't scream. She just stepped back like I was something contagious. Like everything she knew had dissolved in front of her eyes. "You were my daughter," she said. "I trusted you." I wanted to explain, to tell her that it wasn't a plan, it wasn't a scheme, that I never meant for it to go this far. But she cut me off. "You didn't stop it," she said. "You welcomed it." She turned and walked away. David came downstairs a few minutes later, suitcase in hand. "She knows," I said, voice barely there. "I never meant to hurt her," he replied, but his eyes were hollow. "She's not the only one you hurt." He looked at me then, really looked, and said nothing. I don't remember what I expected. Maybe a scene, screaming, throwing things, dramatic threats, and shattered plates. Maybe even a slap across the face. But what I got was far worse. Silence. After I confessed, after the word yes left my lips, my mother didn't explode. She shrunk, not in size, but in presence. She backed away from me like I was a stranger. Her mouth opened like she wanted to say something, needed to, but all that came out was a broken sound and an even more broken stare. She sat in the living room, eyes glued to nothing, while David stood by the staircase with his bag in hand. He looked aged, more so than I'd ever seen him. His shoulders slumped, his eyes dulled, like someone who had finally seen the cost of everything they had stolen and now couldn't bear to hold it. Mom never screamed. She just whispered, "I need him gone." Then she looked at me. "But you have the power to walk away tonight." I choked down a sob. I didn't want to let her hear. My body didn't know what to do, stand still, run, collapse at her feet. Where would I go? She tilted her head slightly, her voice no longer trembling. It was something worse. "That's no longer my burden. That was the moment I realized I had already been cut loose. I went upstairs, packed quickly, just a few clothes, a charger, my sneakers. My hands moved without guidance. Below me, the house was too quiet. David stood at the bottom of the staircase when I came down, fingers wrapped around the handle of his suitcase like it was the only thing holding him up. She knows I told him again, like maybe he hadn't understood. His eyes met mine, hollow and tired. "I never wanted to hurt her," he said. "So what drove us to this point?" He didn't answer. There was nothing left to say. There were no tearful goodbyes, no lingering glances, just a door closing behind us and an echo that would never quite fade. I moved in with a friend temporarily, I told myself. It was a blur, a mattress on the floor, a cheap desk, cold coffee, and a quiet shame that lived under my skin like frost. I got a new job, something dull, safe, something that didn't require me to talk to many people or look anyone in the eye. David texted, "A lot at first. I miss you. I can't stop thinking about you. Please say something." I didn't respond, because I couldn't trust what part of me might answer. Eventually, the messages slowed, then stopped. Silence again. But the memories didn't. They returned in waves, sometimes small, sometimes impossible to breathe through. The towel clinging to my skin, his hands on my ankle, the sound of the rain that night, the weight of his gaze when he said, "Just say the word." I tried to tell myself it wasn't love, because it wasn't. It was longing, distorted, desperate. It was two broken people who convinced themselves that darkness was intimacy. It was selfishness dressed up as passion, a need to be seen, to be desired, to feel real in a life that felt otherwise invisible. But what scared me most wasn't that I gave into it. It was how good it felt to be wanted that deeply. That night in her bed, my mother's bed, was the moment I knew I could never pretend again. We'd taken everything sacred and set it on fire. The headboard she picked out, the pillows she fluffed each morning, her scent still clinging to the blankets, and I had melted into him like none of that mattered. Afterward, I lay there staring at the ceiling. "I hate myself," I whispered. "No," he said, tracing the curve of my shoulder with his lips. "You just hate that it felt right." He was wrong. I hated that it felt real. And real things have consequences. I tried to be okay. I really did. I told myself I could rebuild, that this didn't define me, that the version of me who let all this happen was just a moment, not a lifetime. But the guilt doesn't fade just because you want it to. And then one night during a dinner with friends, someone laughed a little too loudly. A joke I didn't hear. A moment I didn't understand. And for some reason I laughed anyway, and I saw it, her face, my mom, in my memory. That sharp look, the beginning of the end. One day I'll tell her I'm sorry. But not yet. She's still trying to piece together a life that doesn't include betrayal in her own home. A daughter she can no longer look at. A husband she once trusted. And me, I'm still haunted by the quiet, by the truth I buried and the parts of myself I didn't recognize until it was too late. We say there are lines we'll never cross, until someone reaches across them and you find yourself stepping forward instead of away. There's a kind of silence that doesn't just fill a room, it fills you. It creeps into the spaces between your ribs, wraps around your throat, settles in your bones. That's the silence I live with now. I wake up in a new place, a new job, a new city. But the girl I was before it all, she's gone. And the one left behind is still trying to forgive herself. What happened between David and me was never about love. It was about being seen by someone who shouldn't have been looking. It was about longing power and 1,000 things left unsaid in a house that never felt like home. But I let it happen. I let silence do the talking when I should have screamed. I let glances speak louder than guilt. I let myself become someone I swore I'd never be, and I carry that with me. I carry it in the way I flinch when someone offers comfort, in the way I hesitate to trust my own wants, in the way I sometimes wonder if I ever really knew who I was before him. Some mistakes leave bruises, others leave fingerprints on your soul. If you're still reading, still listening, maybe a part of you recognizes this weight too. Maybe you've made a choice that changed you, loved someone you shouldn't have kept a secret that burned longer than you imagined. You're not alone. This story isn't meant to justify, it's meant to confess. And if it made you feel something ache, anger, recognition, don't let it sit in silence. Say something. Share your story. Tell the truth even if your voice shakes. Because secrets don't just destroy relationships, they unravel you. Subscribe if you believe in telling stories others are too afraid to say out loud. And if you've ever looked in the mirror and seen someone you didn't recognize, welcome. You're exactly who this space was made for. Your truth is safe here.